Hi everyone, it's Victor speaking, and thank you for being here. Today we're going to be talking about Mercury, as I promised, and a little bit of a positive aspect and the negative aspect. So we're going to be going through Mercury in signs and in houses as well. So, well, let's start with what is actually Mercury. So, Mercury is something which represents the reasoning, the logic, the way we speak. He is the archetype of the writer and the journalist, and its characteristics are very much connected to the way of thinking, communication, even how we write a letter, or the way we like traveling, and something to do with movement as well. So it is also the planet of the intellect, and in that capacity, it dominates education as well. It grants us a wide range of knowledge when, for instance, it's positioned in the ninth house. Now, in unfavorable positions in the birth chart, it can make us moody or untruthful, or we can contradict ourselves, or we can even quarrel with others, especially if that Mercury has got a connection to Mars. Um, the position of Mercury is very valuable in business life as well, because it rules over business transactions. And we usually say when Mercury is, for instance, retrograde in the sky, then you should not really be buying anything which is important, like car or house. But actually, when for instance, it's making an aspect to Neptune, then you need to be careful when you are buying or trading something, because Neptune is the planet of cheating. Now, Mercury also rules over younger people in our life, the youth. So, to some extent, your younger brothers and your cousins, and basically all the individuals around you who are trying to sell you something. So the shop assistant, the brokers, the salesman, and so forth. Now, the very positive side of Mercury, it gives great intellectual adaptability and capacity. It makes us mentally very flexible, and it allows us to easily integrate any type of knowledge. But also, it's quite diplomatic as well. The negative side of Mercury is more about fragmentation, difficulties in concentrating, or even forgery, because Mercury is the planet of tricksters. Um, Mercury in a negative aspects tends to be lying, stealing, a little bit of a cunning energy. So Mercury rules over two signs, two mutable signs actually, and those are Gemini and Virgo. And the house position we associate Mercury with is the third and the sixth house. However, Mercury's favorite position is the first. When it comes to body parts, it rules over the lungs, the central nervous system, your arms, and your hands. Its color is somehow associated with yellow, especially the saffron yellow type of color. And its metal is going to be Mercury. Now, when it comes to the days, it rules actually over Wednesday. So, and its symbol is actually a central circle, which is representing the spirit, and the half a circle in contact with a cross. Now, the half a circle would be the representation of the soul, and the cross is something to do with the everyday reality. Now, Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, and it is the closest one to the sun as well. It never goes away. It never goes further than 28, 29 degrees from the sun. And actually, Mercury takes about 88 days to complete its orbital journey around the sun. Okay, so in mythology, by the way, he is the winged messenger of the gods, which is called Hermes. And it is all about delivering those messages, and it represents the power to understand things in our life. Now, in your chart interpretation, Mercury is going to stand for the mind, the perception, the learning skills, and something to do with your intellect. It rules over your thoughts, your reasoning, the reading and writing abilities, the speech and communication. And the position of the Mercury by sign and house will, and also aspect as well, will indicate your type of mentality and the way you express yourself. So now let's have a look at what it means to have Mercury in the signs and houses as well. So Mercury in Aries or in the first house. So, you know, Aries or the first house are related to action. So Mercury kind of promotes decisive actions here. Typically, it's all about clear and rapid way of thinking. We tend to be quite confident and direct, having a direct approach. So basically, whatever is on what we say in my language, I'm not too sure how it goes in English, but I'm sure someone will mention that in the comment box. Whatever is on your heart is going to be on your mouth as well. That's what we say in English. So basically, you're going to be straightforward when you talk, and if something wants to come out, then it will come out, you know, and therefore this Mercury can be a little bit tempered. You know, it's not necessarily the most accommodating position ever. And probably you don't need so much of a time to kind of consider any type of ideas. Now, when you have got Mercury in good aspects here, then so the positive traits of Mercury is going to be that you might be quite alert, or you've got a quick thinking. You can make immediate decisions. You can be a great problem solver. You can be quite good at debates. You can be good at instigating ideas, and you can be actually confident when it comes to writing and speaking abilities. And also you can be quite good or quick when it comes to learning. When we talk about the bad aspects, now, and what I mean by bad aspects, usually something to do with squares or oppositions from Saturn or Mars, which are the malefic planets, or even it can be Pluto, Uranus, and sometimes Neptune as well. Now, if one of those planets are somehow correlating with Mercury, we can be quite restless and impatient. It's very hard for you to focus on things because there is so much mental stimulation around you and you don't know which one to grasp. You can actually be bad at miscalculation, or you can make the wrong assumptions. It's kind of like a being chased type of syndrome. And your speech can be a little bit unrestrained, or even you can have problems with writing down words, especially that's typical with Uranus type of energy, because you've got so much to say and then you want to be writing them down quickly, and probably you're going to be doing some type of misspelling. But you can also be very argumentative, or you can even exaggerate. And unfortunately, lying is one of those factors as well, which we need to be mentioning with bad aspects. You know, Mercury, especially with Mars connection, even with Uranus connection, we want to be winning debates, right? And most probably when it comes to like the lying type of energy, that's going to be a little bit more Neptunian trait. Now, another negative side maybe of Mercury being in the first house or in the sign of Aries is that you can be a little bit inclined not to listen to others. So it's going to be more a little bit self-centered energy. When it comes to Mercury in Taurus, now Taurus is a slow sign. So the way of thinking is going to be more steady, and it's going to be more of a practical approach. So Mercury tends to consolidate the steady, reliable, and often methodical approach to life. And when it comes to the good aspects here with Mercury, it's very realistic, it's very sensible. It's not going to be rushing, so it's going to be thinking about if this is the right decision or not. So there is kind of a deliberate type of thinking. It's very practical minded. They usually have got a little bit of a fixed opinions as well. They can become stubborn about it, so they don't really want to change their opinion over their hours. But they can be very good at, for instance, calculations, because Taurus rules over finances and not necessarily the business, but Mercury does represent the business transactions. And we can have talent in that department. Now, when it comes to the bad aspect, the way of thinking can be a little bit narrow. So we're going to have to learn to kind of open up to new possibilities. You might overvalue anything which is conventional or traditional as well. You can be overly cautious when it comes to considering new ideas. So we can sometimes get stuck in a rut. One of the I mentioned in the previous video that Taurus is one of those signs who want to be controlling. So with Mercury here, we can have the fear of failure. We can actually kind of never get satisfied with what we have accomplished, or we can never get satisfied with other people's efforts. And therefore, we can miss opportunities, especially if we take our time to make that decision. When it comes to Mercury in Gemini, now Mercury, as I mentioned at the beginning, it does rule over Gemini. This is going to be true for the third house matters as well. It's a very intellectual energy. So we've got a very considerable influence on our mind. But even though Mercury rules over Gemini, it can sometimes cause some type of stress and anxiety as well. And the reason being is because Gemini rules over the nerve system. So, but maybe there is a very strong desire to communicate with others, or there is a very strong desire to promote something. Now, in good aspects, that Mercury, well, it's always on the go. So it needs variety in life, because this is one of the most curious signs of all. It can be easily stimulated. It is very versatile and adaptable. It is very good at making jokes as well, because there are those kind of sparks and flicks in the brain, and it gives them, a kind of energy to choose the right words all the time. They usually learn very quickly. They are very good at debate, and they always have got an answer for something. When it comes to the negative traits of this Mercury, they have got difficulties to concentrate, because they can easily get distracted. So they always need something to do, or we have to, especially if you have a child with Mercury in Gemini, we have to occupy them with giving them something to learn, or some type of information, because they have got this insatiable hunger for learning. They might sometimes feel that the information given to them is actually useless. And the reason being is because Gemini is quite a practical sign. At the end of the day, is the everyday activities alongside with Mercury as well. So maybe sometimes we need to reason to these people why it is useful in our life. Now, Mercury in Gemini has got the tendency to seek shortcuts. rather than facing any type of problems. And when it comes to their studies, there could be the low and the high moments as well. So they could be very good at certain subjects which they are interested in, but maybe they are not so good at math, for instance, where there are maybe some type of numbers involved. That's a little bit more like the Taurian energy. And maybe another downfall of this position is that they could be a little bit too chatty, a little bit of a chatterbox, but which not necessarily is a problem, but they only scratch the surface and they don't really go deep enough. When you've got Mercury in Cancer or in the fourth house, well, the family is somehow going to be always on the mind. So probably Cancer does need to learn. Cancer Mercury does need to learn how to think positively. When it's in good aspects, somehow your communication style is linked to your emotions. And Cancer is all about the memory. So they remember what you told them 20 years ago. And if it was hurtful, then it's going to be playing on their minds. But the question is, are they going to be saying that out loudly? You know, Mercury in Cancer can be quite talented at teaching because they have got clear ways to demonstrate facts, and sometimes, I mean, most of the time they are quite understandable as well. They actually have got the ability to influence public mood. So, and then it could, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, it could swing to the very good part of it, and it could swing to the, to the worst part of it as well. But they usually are very receptive towards their ideas. They are quite intuitive as well. So intuitively, they have got some thoughts about others. Actually, Mercury in Cancer or in the fourth house might indicate that they are functioning a lot better at home, in a homely environment than anywhere else. And in bad aspects, this Mercury, well, as I mentioned before, their communication skills could really depend on their mood. So if you catch them in a bad mood, most probably not necessarily hurtful, but they can really influence you as well. So their mood can be changing, or their way of thinking can be changing frequently. They can have sometimes a little bit of a rigid outlook on life. They can be clingy towards the past, and they can be daydreaming as well. Mercury is all about collecting data and ideas. But when it's badly aspected in the sign of Cancer or in the fourth house, they might not be using it in the most efficient way. When you've got Mercury in Leo or in the fifth house, well, it enhances, the emotional. I mean, it does give a good organizational skills. It does give the power of concentration. Why? Because Leo is a fixed sign. So fixed signs are quite determined. In good aspects, that Mercury is going to be very cheerful and very optimistic. So, but it does want to be in the center of the attention, though. They can be very tolerant with others. They can be very, very generous when it comes to sharing information. They could be quite broad-minded as well, but they can have a fixed mindset. So their opinion doesn't change easily here either. But again, it brings us a little bit of a confidence in communication skills, and maybe they are interested in art or theater or just some type of public speaking, because Leo on the fifth house rules over stage. Mercury in Leo or in the fifth house could have a very good organizational skills as well. Now, when it is badly aspected, well, this Mercury could be lacking a little bit of humility. So it could be way too outspoken and dogmatic, and it doesn't really care about other people's views or views of others. And it can be sometimes a little bit inflexible, and they have got their set ways of doing things. When it comes to Mercury in Virgo, so it does rule Virgo, as I mentioned before. And, it could really reinforce anything to do with mental anxiety, especially if Mercury gets bogged down here with small details. And Mercury in Virgo has got a little bit of an issue of seeing the bigger picture. But in good aspects, it is very business savvy. It is very systematic. It is all about having a system in place. They can be quite critical, but in a good sense. They could be very systematical when it comes to learning. So, those are the ones who are using highlighters and these post-it notes in the books, and I don't know, coloring different pages and making notes and all those type of things. And they could also be quite witty as well. And they can be very sensible when it comes to health matters also. Mercury in Virgo can be quite neat and tidy. Now, when it comes to those less fortunate aspects, they can become very fussy over details, and they become a perfectionist. They're gonna try to find a fault in anything. They can worry a lot. They can burn out at their workplace. They can actually be sensitive towards complaints, or they can be complaining a lot as well, or they can become obsessed with their health or even with their food, what they eat. So they can become very picky, or they can get involved in their work way too much, and they don't know when to stop. So it's not about working 40 hours a week, but they will put 70 hours into their work, and they won't have enough time for anything else. And they could be very sarcastic, very critical with other people as well. When it comes to Mercury in Libra or Mercury in the seventh house, well, one of the focus is definitely going to be business transactions and the relationship, business partnership. So in good aspects, actually that Mercury could be having very great negotiation skills. It could be a brilliant salesman. It could be very good at one-to-one discussions. It has got quite a fair-minded type of approach to life. They can be quite rational, and they can have a very objective, balanced judgment towards things as well. But they could also be very charming, and they have got the power of persuasion. So that's why they are brilliant sales people, but they do that not in a forceful way. They do that in a diplomatic, tactful way. Now, when it comes to the negative aspects, they could be having some type of problems at decision making. Why is that? Because the Libra is the archetype of a scale. So it measures, weighs things too much, and can't really make the decision, right? Or it's not necessarily the most agreeable type of energy. So, because again, yes, that person is right, this person is right as well. So, and how am I going to keep the peace? How can I give, truth to every single participant, for instance, of that debate? Mercury in Libra in a bad aspect could be not the most reliable type of energy, because um, And it's not because they want to be harmful, but they have got the tendency to make mistakes or to misjudge situations. And even they can get into legal matters easily by not reading the fine print. For instance, if there is Neptune involvement or with Uranus involvement, because we want to be making a rash decision, and all those type of energies. When it comes to Mercury in Scorpio or in the eighth house, your way of thinking is definitely going to be very deep. So it's going to be all about seeing beyond facts. It really boosts your intuition as well. In my opinion, Mercury is one of those planets which rules over astrology because it's actually the twilight zone. Mercury's favorite placement is the first house. And the first house is the marker between sunrise and sunset, so light and darkness. And yeah, so Mercury here can be very good at applying the logic, the common sense to situations, but also it's very good to use its intuition as well. And it could be quite nicely balanced. So their way of thinking can be quite intense. They can be highly curious. They can be very observant. I usually say that this is the type of energy when they are standing at one corner and then they can see people through easily. But they can be very secretive as well. They don't really give much away, and it's very hard to judge them or very hard to read them because they're more like the observant type of energy. But they have got very strong instincts. They are very intuitive, and they must listen to that. Mercury is all about gathering data, and Scorpio is an investigative sign. So they could make a great private detector, for instance. They are very good to get to the core of anything, to get the truth out of people as well. So even something to do with consultancy could be a good option, but that's very typical with the Libra or the seventh house energy as well. So I would say that Mercury in the eighth house or in the sign of Scorpio can give you great financial skills as well. And because Scorpio is one of those most determined signs ever. Mercury here can have a great eye for any type of opportunities to take advantage of. But in bad aspects, their mind can be slightly bit inflexible. They can be very skeptical about things, and they can also be very intolerant of other people's viewpoints. Their way of thinking can be quite obsessive. They can be jealous and resentful as well towards others, or they might have got some type of trust issues, and it's always at the back of their mind, what does this person want from me? Why do they talk to me? What are their intentions? So it's a little bit of a suspicious energy. When it comes to Mercury in Sagittarius, which is one of those weaker positions for Mercury, and the reason being is because Sagittarius is not necessarily that much into everyday activities. It's more about a broader type of, approach to life. Now, it is said that it's something which is in a detriment position. And I've made a webinar about detriments and falls and why I don't think we should be looking at them as a very bad thing. So if you are interested in that, check it out. It's a good 3.5 hour video. But when it comes to Mercury in Sagittarius, in good aspects, this can make the person very intelligent. It can have a very adventurous mind. It might want to be traveling a lot. It can learn easily. It can be very philosophical. It can be quite a deep thinker in a sense that, it thinks about the broader energies of life. It can have actually prophetic dreams. You might not know, you might not, but I put it out there. The ninth house is something to do with dreams, the prophecy type of dreams. So if you have got Mercury in the ninth house, you can actually be very good at analyzing those and kind of making a prognosis out of them. Your mind could be very much linked to justice, and it has got quite a moral code. And as I mentioned, Mercury in Sagittarius does love traveling a lot. Now, in bad aspects, this Mercury can be always on the go, and it's hard for them to settle down. It can be taking on way too many tasks because Sagittarius has got this greedy aspect, and it's not because it wants to kind of harm anyone, but it wants to prove the point. And Mercury here tends to leave things unfinished as well. Okay, when it comes to Mercury, it's all about collecting data, as I mentioned, collecting every single facet of the facts, but they don't utilize them. They don't make a full use of it. It's a very much of an energy which is keen to learn. But the question is the person going to be completing that course, or are they going to be sharing those knowledge with others as well? Because Mercury in Sagittarius makes an excellent teacher and presenter and lecturer. But Mercury here does need to learn that they are not an eternal student. At one point, they're going to have to share things with others. And this is the energy when Mercury is in Sagittarius or in connection with Jupiter, it can exaggerate quite a lot. So there is a little bit of a lying tendency here as well. When it comes to Mercury in the sign of Capricorn, now this is quite a grounded way of thinking. Maybe the thinking is going to be always around some type of achievement and legacy matters. Capricorn is well established and it's a very disciplined sign. It has got quite a methodical approach to life. And Mercury here is extremely good at making long-term plans. However, one of the little negative side could be the pessimism, or Mercury here kind of cuts off the emotions from others, and it could be a little bit of a loner. Now, but in good aspects, these people are very ambitious. They are quite well-defined. They are having quite well-defined aims, but they could be sometimes a little bit cautious and patient as well, or a little bit slow when it comes to not necessarily their way of thinking, but they are more a little bit systematic, or they've got this disciplined approach to things. Very practical, they usually are very professional, and they like taking on responsibility as well. It's definitely a business savvy energy. They are extremely good at making strategies and making plans. So they can be easily some planners or organizers, and their way of thinking could be quite serious, and they have got the ability to concentrate on things. They are sometimes a little bit start to slow, but once they are on the track, then actually they are very motivated to get to the end of the tunnel. Well, now, when it comes to the bad aspects, sometimes a little bit unresponsive to change. They take on way too much duty, or they could be very traditional as well. Sometimes Mercury here does see the obstacles, and but it does see it as obstacles rather than a challenge. And it could be having some type of fears going on, and it could be having issues of expressing their feelings. It is also an energy where Mercury can become sometimes a little bit suspicious and worrying a lot about what others think of him. Now, I do have got Mercury in the sign of Capricorn in the 11th house. And my Mercury does not have any bad aspects, actually. So it's a little bit of a neutral energy, but I feel like I'm very good at making strategies and plans. But I have to admit, I can be slow to act on things. I know I want to get to the end of the tunnel, but sometimes it takes me a little bit longer. So, for instance, I studied astrology for now a good 21 years, and it took me at least like 17 to get out there in the public. However, Mercury is in my 11th house. Well, we know that Capricorn is a little bit of a late bloomer. And if you have got Mercury there, some of those things what Mercury rules in your chart could be, coming into your life at later age. For instance, my Mercury rules the 4th house. And I bought my property last year. I never wanted one. And it also rules over my relationship department. And well, I've mentioned that in a couple of videos that this is not the most comfortable area in my life. But let's move on. Mercury in Aquarius. I did mention this a little bit in the previous video. Mercury here can become a genius. It's all about sharing ideas, and it's all about an independent thinking. Yes, this is also an energy where Mercury is a little bit reluctant to change their opinion, but it has got a very inventive and original way of thinking. It can really come up with some type of weird solutions to any type of problems, but eventually it looks to be working. And their way of thinking is very progressive and advanced. Probably these people are very inclined towards technology or scientific type of things, or anything which is unusual. But also, I would say that it gives the person plenty of intuitive type of energy as well, which comes like in flashes. And the person might not be able to deal with that quick enough. So that's why we could be having some type of mental disorder issues here, because I keep downloading the information, they keep coming, and I don't know what to do with them. Right. So, but I've mentioned this already in the previous video. In negative aspects, this Mercury can resist of any type of new things or new ideas. And for instance, in business matters, this is not necessarily that great. The reason being is because from time to time, your business does need to change. It does need new ideas. And the fixity of this Aquarius kind of makes you get stuck in a rut. So definitely you need to work on that stubbornness, okay? And you do need to learn how to change your views on things. Now, Mercury in Aquarius can joke quite a lot, but they sometimes might not know their limits, how far they can go with that. Okay, but they could be very humorous. And then, as I said, sometimes they don't feel necessarily understood either, because they are very progressive and they are very advanced when it comes to their way of thinking can be a little bit orthodox, and sometimes they feel misunderstood by others because they don't see what I see. And last but not least, Mercury in Pisces, or being in the 12th house, which I've already touched base on in the previous video as well. But in good aspects, that Mercury is very intuitive. It's very impressionable. It's very visionary. It can be good at writing songs and music, or anything to do with drawing as well, drawing images or shapes, forms, and colors. So there is a very strong artistic leanings. Mercury here does think about the common good, so it's a very charitable type of Mercury, and they could be quite hands-on as well. They are all about trying to save animals. Let's not forget Mercury rules over Virgo and Pisces rules large animals. So actually that's one of the remedies as well. They can be petting an animal every day, or they can have one, and especially maybe I would say a cat. The reason why, because Mercury in Pisces can be interested in witchcraft, which is somehow connected to black cats, right? But when it comes to so Mercury here can be like a psychic sponge, kind of a seer type of energy. But in bad aspects, they don't know what to do with this. And they can easily get confused by the messages they receive. I usually call it like a psychic antenna type of thing. They can easily pick up on other people's emotions. And the emotions can tend to rule over their way of thinking. So they have got some hardship to stay in reality, or they have got some hardship to do practical things. Therefore, they can be sometimes judgmental towards themselves as well, not to others at all, especially if they make mistakes. And therefore, they always try to find a little segment in their brain to escape to. Sometimes these people are used and being taken advantage of, and therefore they kind of again create some safe zone for themselves, which eventually might become like a depression. They are very much of a softie and very sensitive. So we need to treat them with a touch of care, really. Okay. Oh, and another one. Mercury in Pisces is kind of unable to say no. And therefore, they place others in front of themselves. So one of the things you might definitely want to learn is to how to say no to others and focusing on yourself a little bit more. The reason why I prepared this video for you is because this is the third videos of this little series of mental disorders in our chart. And if you feel you have got any of those, then maybe those bad aspects, you need to be turning them into something positive. And what you should be doing is, for instance, I have got a Mercury in the 11th house in the sign of Capricorn. So I would be somehow remember that the sign is always how we do things. And the house position is the area of life. So you might want to be looking at the sign you have got and matching that up with the area of life, right? So as I mentioned, Mercury in Capricorn could be I've got a very systematic approach. And the 11th house is the long-term goals. So I can have very systematic approach to long-term goals, right? But if you have got, let's say, a Mercury aspect from Saturn, then you might want to be looking at the Capricorn energy to your Mercury as well, what I've described, because those somehow could be descriptive about your Mercury placement. And firstly, you want to be looking at whether those two planets which are connecting are friendly to each other or not. And I usually determine that by the qualities of the planet. So Sun and Mars are hot and dry planets. Moon and Venus are cold and wet energies. And Mercury and Saturn are cold and dry. And Jupiter has no pair. He is more like a hot and wet energy. So what you want to be looking at is how does that manifest in your life? So, for instance, I can mention to you that how my Mercury played out in the sign of Capricorn. So, for instance, I remember once my teacher told me that you are the most stupid person ever, and it's never going to be working out for you. And, and it was about language learning, because I mispronounced the word. And I remember it really got stuck in my head for a very long time. So because Capricorn does have got this limitation type of energy. So you want to be thinking through your Mercury placement as well as your moon placement, if you have got some mental disorder issues, and how can I make the most out of it? So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and then if you did so, then please uh, give us some love and ring the notification bell as well, so you can be notified about my next teaching. And I do weekly forecasts as well, where I try to kind of help you lead your life according to the best possible energies. See you very soon, everyone. Bye-bye.